check out what the Dallas coach said after the game against the Warriors, but before we start the video, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Following the win against the Golden State Warriors, Jason Kidd did not sound like a coach chasing headlines or exaggerating the moment. His tone reflected something more important than excitement: clarity. What stood out most in his post-game remarks was how deliberately he framed the victory, not as a burst of talent, but as a product of control, discipline, and shared responsibility. Kidd returned repeatedly to the idea of composure, and not by accident. Against a team like Golden State, games often swing violently. A couple of rushed possessions, a bad turnover, or a lapse in defensive focus can quickly turn into an avalanche of points. Kidd made it clear that Dallas understood this danger and actively resisted it. The Mavericks did not rush. They did not try to match chaos with chaos. Instead, they slowed the game down when needed and trusted their structure. That kind of restraint is often invisible on the stat sheet, but it is usually the difference between teams that survive pressure and teams that collapse under it. Ball security was another pillar of Kidd's message. He emphasized how taking care of the basketball allowed Dallas to control tempo and rhythm. This point may sound basic, but it reveals something deeper about the team's maturity. Turnovers are not just mistakes. They are emotional triggers. They energize opponents, deflate defenses, and force teams into reactive basketball. By limiting those moments, Dallas kept the Warriors from feeding off momentum. In many ways, this was less about execution and more about intent. The Mavericks approached each possession with patience, as if they understood that winning was a process, not a sequence of highlights. Defensively, Kidd spoke with appreciation for collective effort rather than individual brilliance. He focused on communication, positioning, and trust. Golden State's offense thrives on confusion, constant movement, quick decisions, and exploiting hesitation. Dallas countered this not by gambling, but by staying connected. Kidd's words suggested a defense that knew its priorities. They did not overreact. They did not chase every fake or cut. Instead, they accepted that some shots would fall but refused to give up easy ones. This type of defensive discipline often reflects strong internal accountability, something teams usually develop only through repetition and shared experience. On offense, Kidd highlighted ball movement and unselfish play. He praised how the Mavericks shared the ball and trusted the next pass. What's notable here is that Kidd did not frame this as generosity, but as efficiency. When the ball moves, defenses move. When defenses move, mistakes happen. Dallas took advantage of those moments. The offense was not about one player dominating possessions, but about multiple players staying involved and ready. That balance made the team less predictable and far more difficult to guard. Kidd also emphasized simplicity, a word that carries more weight than it seems. In high-level basketball, complexity often becomes a trap. Overthinking leads to hesitation, and hesitation kills execution. Dallas avoided that. They spaced the floor, set solid screens, cut with purpose, and took the shots that naturally emerged from the flow of the offense. There was confidence in that simplicity, a quiet understanding that doing the fundamentals well is often enough to beat even the most talented opponents. As Kidd spoke, it became clear that he viewed the game not as a breakthrough, but as confirmation. The win represented what the Mavericks look like when they are aligned, mentally, tactically, and emotionally. There was no sense of arrival in his words, only expectation. The performance set a standard, and standards imply responsibility. For Kidd, the real challenge was not winning this game, but repeating this level of focus and execution going forward. That, more than the scoreboard, was the true measure of success. As Jason Kidd continued reflecting on the game, his focus subtly shifted from what happened on the court to what this performance represents in a broader sense. Winning a single game, especially in the regular season, is never the ultimate goal. What matters is whether a team can understand why it won, and whether it can recreate those conditions again and again. Kidd's words suggested that this was the real test ahead for Dallas. One of the underlying themes in his remarks was leadership, though he did not isolate it to one voice or one player. Leadership, in Kidd's framing, appeared to be collective. It showed up in decision-making, in body language, and in how players responded when the Warriors tried to shift momentum. Instead of forcing plays or looking for individual solutions, the Mavericks stayed connected. That kind of response usually signals a locker room that trusts both the coaching staff and each other. Kidd also hinted at the importance of habits. Good teams, in his view, are built less on emotion and more on routine. The way Dallas approached this game, valuing possessions, communicating defensively, sharing the ball, reflected habits formed over time. These are not adjustments that appear overnight. They are repeated actions that eventually become instinct. Kidd seemed aware that this is where real progress lies. When players no longer have to think about doing the right thing, they simply do it. There was also an implicit acknowledgement that this level of execution must survive adversity. Kidd understands that not every night will feel controlled or comfortable. Shots will stop falling. Opponents will adjust. Energy will fluctuate. What made this game encouraging was not that everything went perfectly, but that Dallas stayed grounded when challenges appeared. They did not abandon their identity. They did not search for shortcuts. They trusted the process, even when patience was required. Another important layer in Kidd's perspective was accountability. His praise carried an expectation beneath it. When a coach emphasizes execution and composure, he is also drawing a line. This becomes the benchmark. Anything less moving forward will feel like a step backward. Kidd did not frame the win as a peak, but as a reference point, a reminder of what the team looks like when it is fully locked in. That kind of framing often reveals a coach who is thinking long-term rather than chasing short-term validation. What stands out most is how understated Kidd's reaction was. There was no exaggeration, no sense of urgency disguised as excitement. That calmness speaks volumes. It suggests confidence not only in the players, but in the direction of the team. Coaches who panic after wins usually do so because they fear inconsistency. Kidd's approach implied belief that consistency is attainable, if the team commits to the same principles night after night. In the end, Kidd's post-game message was less about celebration and more about responsibility. The Mavericks showed what they are capable of when they play with intention, discipline, and trust. The challenge now is repetition. Talent can win games, but habits win seasons. Kidd understands that the true value of this victory will be measured not by how it is remembered, but by how often Dallas can replicate it. And with that, the message was complete. Not loud, not dramatic, but clear. This was not just a win. It was a reminder of the standard.